Well, I'm delighted today to be speaking to Ronald Graham, Managing Partner of Taylor Wessing in Dubai. Welcome, Ronald.
Thank you, David. Nice to see you.
So it'd be interesting, before we get into our discussion about some of the topical issues from here in Dubai, it'd be interesting to hear a little bit more about your background and the firm here.
Okay. I moved to the region just over a year ago. I've been with Taylor Wessing for 11 years. I'm a corporate M&A lawyer by background, but I was heading up the private wealth team in London, so focusing on the wider work that we as a firm provide for the high net worth community. The opportunity was very opportune to come down here at that time, 12 months ago. Post-COVID, the economy seemed to be doing very well, and we're very lucky. We've had a great office here for 20 years, but Taylor Wessing would like to focus a little bit more on its key sectors, one of which is private wealth, but also technology, venture capital, and life sciences. And so I was asked by our board, would you come down and take on that role? And it's been a fantastic 12 months.
Well, it strikes me that Dubai is booming. I mean, I imagine you see that coming through in the high net worth clients that you're working with. I mean, what is it that you think appeals about Dubai to that high net worth community?
It's a great question, and there's so much that's appealing to the high net worth community at the moment. There's obviously the very favourable tax regime, but I think you could point to other jurisdictions around the world that have a favourable tax regime. But the extras that come with Dubai, the affordability of buying property compared to someone like Monaco, the climate, the geographical central location going east-west, north-south. I think the fact that COVID was dealt with very well in this region, very successfully. The ease of getting visas and immigration. The ease of setting up a business, so people want to move here and also have a business here as well, use the free trade zones. And I think the fact that Dubai is clearly very focused on family businesses and family offices, which we can see by DIFC starting the Family Business Centre, which is led by Dr. Tariq Hajiri. So I applaud what's being done there.
And will that really bolster the professional services community here, the knowledge that's here, and working with key clients in the region? There's lots of learnings to share, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm sure it will, because it will add a centre, an international centre, and sort of elevate Dubai as a centre of high net worth. The fact that there's going to be a market standard which will be recognised internationally with a form of certification, I think is part of the plan for the DIFC Family Business Centre. And I think the fact that they will also help assess some of the service providers in that community is going to be actually very exciting, I think, for the whole group, whether you're a customer or whether you're a service provider.
And for relocators, that appeal is across, not only across the GCC, so there's wealthy families relocating into Dubai, but also European, more and more European entrepreneurial clients looking at coming and setting up base here. Do you see that trend? Do you see other parts of the world also appealing in terms of high net worth relocators?
Yes, we've seen quite a lot of interest from Asia. I think with disruption in Hong Kong, some changes to the regulations in Singapore have also encouraged the high net worth community relocating here. I think also the favourable regime for some of the businesses that new generation are involved in, particularly crypto, NFT, alternative asset classes, the venture capital community that we're so embedded in ourselves. All that is very exciting, I think, for that generation. But yes, we have seen a lot of movement, actually particularly from Northern Europe, obviously from Eastern Europe, with the disruption that's going on there. But I think other parts of the world as well. We've seen quite a lot of interest from the US in terms of people looking to relocate here because of the advantages that we've just discussed.
Interesting. And on the alternatives front, are you involved in structuring investments into real estate, private equity? What kind of do you see from the alternative asset classes in the private wealth context?
Yeah, so a whole bunch of them, to be honest with you, David. And yes, we are advising on the legal structures. We don't advise on the investment decisions, but we do advise on the structures. Certainly venture capital and technology. So people going into funds, people setting up dedicated funds here in the region, or using a European jurisdiction for that because of maybe advantages with double tax treaties. So those people that are looking at funds in Egypt might want to use a Dutch vehicle because of the double tax treaty there. Likewise in Turkey, we're seeing quite a lot of activity from there. So VC and tech is very strong, and within that, I would say there's a lot of activity in fintech. It's very exciting, and also life sciences, people looking at using technology for the life sciences and healthcare community. Beyond that, yes, we've seen a lot of interest in people looking at art. Obviously, that's always been a strong alternative asset class. I think the top performing asset class in the last few years has been whiskey. Obviously not easy to get here, but you can invest in it through various vehicles there. Wine is also very important. And one of my particular favorites is classic cars. And Taylor Wessing acted in May on the sale of the most expensive car ever sold in the world, a Mercedes 300 SLR, which was built for Le Mans but never raced in 1955 and was sold for 140 million euros earlier this year.
Wow, and there's a lot of innovation here in the legal sector in terms of new law being brought forward. The foundation law of a few years ago is well established as part of the toolkit. Do you see the range of structures that are available here increasing and people adopting new ways of making investments?
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, the foundation is a very exciting structure, particularly the DIFC structure. We're seeing a lot of interest in that. It shows many uses for Sharia compliant purposes, people concerned about anonymity, people wanting to protect assets, and it's obviously very suitable for UAE assets. I think it was only brought in 2018, so it will be interesting to see its suitability for non-UAE assets, and we, along with other firms, are testing suitability for European, US, and Asian assets in terms of them going into the foundations. But I think also the fact that a Dubai company can transfer and can transform itself into a foundation makes it unique, particularly against ADGM foundations. So yeah, I think we'll see a lot of growth in that area, and probably more complexity in that. Whether or not there are going to be, many more products in terms of many more structures like that, I'm not so sure. I think the DIFC family business unit will be interesting in terms of driving that forward, because you will see family businesses wanting to use interesting asset classes and also structures to hold their family assets.
So in terms of the tech sector and venture capital that you mentioned earlier, are you seeing new ideas being incubated here and supported and financed? And is also a mixture of that with the demand to invest overseas in perhaps established companies in the UK, or monitoring in the US, monitoring what fintech's doing globally? How do you see the fintech investment side sort of playing out for families that you work with?
It's a really interesting area, and I think we're seeing new ideas here. There's a lot of very clever people, a lot of very innovative people here, particularly within the fintech sector, pushing the boundaries there. We recently hired a team of 4 venture capital and technology lawyers to our platform in Dubai, and 2 of those are actual angel investors themselves. So we're very immersed in that sector. What I think is very nice is that a few years ago you were seeing funds and you were seeing potential investors looking at Dubai, sort of dipping their toe in the market. Now I think they see it as a real opportunity and they want to be here. And you've seen funds like Sequoia actually opening offices here, whereas previously they were just flying in and flying out. And I think you'll see more of that. I think you'll see more or less all the world's serious investors in VC and also limited partners, general partners, actually wanting to be here on the ground.
Is it easy for those building up ideas here and incubating new ideas to bring in skilled people if they need them? Because we're talking about very specialist people. Do you find that it's easy to bring people in who want to work in Dubai?
First of all, I think it's changed, and there are already a lot of very good people here. That probably wasn't the case a few years ago, but a lot of people have a
talent pool already here.
Exactly. There's a fantastic talent pool. There's a fantastic infrastructure, and the ease of opening companies, the ease of immigration, getting entrepreneur visas, the way the Dubai government has been encouraging that, has really helped that sector develop well. So I think we'll see more and more of it. It's a very exciting area, and of course, there's a lot of focus from the Dubai government actually in what's called advanced technology and promoting that, which can then be exported.
And what do you see on the crypto and digital asset side? I mean, you read a lot of press coverage about the momentum and energy that's here for that kind of asset class. Do you see it filtering through into new setups, in raising investment for new concepts and building businesses here in that sector? We do.
We're asked about it all the time. And I think if you're acting for families as we are, particularly sort of large, high net worth, ultra high net worth families, generation 3, generation 4 are very excited about that. And frankly, if you don't understand that language and you're not able to help them with some of the contracts and the opportunities that they're seeing, then you can't really compete with that. Yes, we are seeing a lot of activity in it. I think some people have had their fingers burned in the crypto market, in the last few months. So whether or not that cools things off, I don't know. We're certainly seeing a lot of interest in NFTs. I think the combination of NFTs and luxury brands here in Dubai is very exciting. A lot of people like that combination, the fact that they can connect with a luxury brand through an NFT is quite exciting.
With the next generation of wealth coming through, do those new younger clients want something different from their service providers, do you think, whether they're engaging with trustees on family structures or banks, or do you perceive actually the challenges are very similar to those that faced by previous generations, and their demands are equally similar?
I think the newer generation 3, generation 4, want to be a lot closer. They generally want to be more involved, more actively involved in investment decisions. They care passionately about ESG. I'm not sure it was such a focus 10 years ago. So whereas some of the patriarchs, matriarchs that we act for would have been quite happy to hand over to wealth managers, asset managers, fiduciaries, and let them run the assets there. I'm certainly seeing a lot more interest from the children generation, the grandchildren generation, in terms of wanting to be part of that. Sometimes it's not directly involved. Sometimes it's because they have a philanthropic interest. They're interested in how that money can be used separately. Sometimes it's to make sure that investments are sustainable investments, to make sure that things are being done in the right way. But yes, I think I'm seeing more interest in that, and it will be interesting from our point of view as lawyers to see how the fiduciaries open up and encourage that working together.
And do you see family charters being used to kind of codify the value of families, and in the exercise of trying to do succession planning and part of wealth transfer, to understand and make sure everyone's on the same page? Or what's your view on the use of those kind of documents and exercises?
I love them. I think they're great. I'm really supportive of it. I worked with a family recently who actually brought in a life coach. They all sat round a table and said, what do we want to do with the family wealth? And some people wanted to be actively involved in it. Some people wanted to form a foundation and only focus on charity. Some people just wanted to take their dividend check and get on with their own life. And I think it's very interesting when you bring a family together like that maybe have never all got round a table and actually sat and discussed, what do we want to do with this? Do we want to grow the capital, or what's next with it? So I'm fully supportive of it, and I'd like to see more of it. I think there's a cost element to it, and I think it probably works for larger families. There's no magic number in terms of when it's worthwhile and when it's not worthwhile. But I think it is, for a larger family, well worth doing that. In terms of a family charter, family constitution, they come in all shapes and sizes, and sometimes we as lawyers do this, sometimes, some of the other service providers do them themselves. I think no one wants to create a document that sits on the shelf that's never used, and some people have been guilty of that. But I do think for a family of complexity and many businesses that maybe want to introduce some rigor in terms of who's going to be more actively involved in the business, they can be very, very useful.
And Dubai real estate is booming. I mean, how do you see the residential sector? I mean, out on the Palm, people tell me you can't even find a property for sale to buy. I mean, it's such a tight market. I mean, how do you see generally the residential real estate market here locally? It's
phenomenally hot.
Yeah.
We're not long after Expo. We're going into the World Cup later this month. Dubai is booming. There's a lot of issues going on in Europe. A lot of people who still want to buy property here. A lot of people who want to upgrade from an apartment to a villa. Post-COVID, I think want that space. I think there is a lot of new supply coming onto the market in the course of next year. Some really quality developments. So the focus has obviously been on sort of Arabian ranches, the Palm, etc. I think that will broaden out, whether that will have an impact. So the market at the moment I would describe as very hot. I think it'll be very interesting to see where we are in 6-12 months' time. I would expect maybe a cooling off. Slightly depends what's happening in Ukraine, slightly depends what's happening in the European markets with interest rates. Whether that's beginning to have an impact in terms of people's access to mortgages.
And for commercial property, I mean, the way offices are being used globally is changing. You're seeing a lot of new companies coming to Dubai to set up. What are companies looking for office space here finding? Are they finding, plenty of availability or difficulty actually getting office space and set up?
Yeah, I think it slightly depends which free trade zone they're in, and obviously the quality can vary hugely. But for certainly some of the newer businesses that we're seeing, and maybe even small family offices, they're wanting the more modern, the trendier buildings. They like the idea of sharing with other tenants, the fact that they can share ideas, they can sit together in the communal areas. But there's obviously still a very high demand for quality office space in DIFC and ADGM. That's obviously the top of the
And finally,
market.
I mean, what do you think really are the qualities of a really good private wealth lawyer? I mean, through your career, you must have learned a lot about dealing with clients, what makes them tick, what leads to a good result. What would you share with us on that?
Well, people often say you need to be a good listener as a lawyer, that you've got 2 ears and one mouth. I think as a private wealth lawyer, you mustn't forget that you have a mouth, and that people don't just want to hear yes. They want you to listen to their issues, to their objectives, to the challenges they face, but they do want clear, commercial, sound advice. And I think it's very important as a senior private wealth lawyer to be able to deliver that in the right way, to make sure that it's the right people hearing it, to make sure that advice is understood to the extent it's agreed upon, to make sure that advice is followed. You've got to understand the law, so there's a lot of changes in the fiscal regime to make sure if somebody has a structure that was set up 4 or 5 years ago, that it's actually fit for purpose now. I think many people in the industry are guilty of not updating their structures. We update our cars, we take it for an MOT every year. How often do we actually do that with a family structure? And that needs to happen. I think probably needs to happen more. One of the things we've introduced is a system where we can assess a family's structure on a sort of fairly quick basis, almost like an audit from a legal point of view in terms of is it compatible with the current system, and we find that quite attractive. Other qualities, I think you have to have a very good team around you. Don't try and do everything. If somebody wants advice on litigation or reputation management, I can refer them to colleagues. If somebody wants advice on foundations or trusts, we can handle that there. But we're very much a team, and it's important to remember that, to bring in the right member of the team, to check that relationship's working, and to make sure that you're giving the right advice at the right time.
And I imagine also then you need to collaborate with third parties externally, with the banks, the fiduciaries, other partners.
Yes, and that's one of the nice things I always think about the private wealth community, is that we are very close. We're a close network, and whether or not it's wealth managers, asset managers, fiduciaries, administrators, and even in the wider sense, people like property agents, to be able to recommend that. Auction houses as well, we work with very closely. So, that whole community is very important to us.
Great. Well, look, terrific to talk to you today, and look forward to sharing this interview.
Thanks very much, David. Thank you.
The latest technical content delivered through global conversations with professionals for professionals.